Hello, everybody. Um, Today I am going to be interviewing this amazing human. I've been following her work for a couple of years now. Hi, Lana. She's here. I was giving an introduction of you. And I'm just so honored that she's going to be joining me today and sharing her story. Request. Hi, Natalie. Gonna put my glasses on because it's just easier. Yeah. Hello. Request. There you go. She should be joining in just a bit. Just accepted her request. Hi, Lana.
Oh, hi.
How are you?
I am doing great. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, thank you for being here with me. So I was just giving an introduction of you. So I've been following Lana for a while. I read your book, Erotic Hustle, and it really inspired me. I remember the first time I was introduced to your work, I believe you gave like a master class in the Yoni Pleasure Palace.
Hmm.
Some, so,
Not
so,
sure.
yeah, something like that. It was like through a membership of something, and it was like embodying like that seductress energy, and the transmission was so powerful. And that was the first time I felt something in my body that was unlocked. And then I remember like DMing you. I was like, oh my God, that was such a powerful transmission. Thank you so much. And ever since, it was like a couple years ago, ever since I've been like closely following your work and really admiring you. So Lana is like, she was a previous erotic dancer. I believe you still don't do it, but you took it to like a completely different conscious approach to it, which I really admire. She really changed my like outlook on sexuality and sacred sexuality as well as psychedelics, and just like your true embodiment and your energy of shows through like the pureness of your your diet and your lifestyle. Without it, like before I even knew that this is something you do, I was like, I can feel like this pure energy, divine coming through you. Like just the moment you move or just anything I see, like I can feel your transmission. It's really powerful. So I'm really honored to have you here with me today, and I would love to hear more of your story and have my followers as well just hear more of your story. So I'll give you the space to introduce yourself in the way that you like to introduce yourself.
Well, that was quite a divine introduction. I almost am compelled to leave it at just that. So thank you so much. It might have been one of Nadine's workshops, but I'm not sure. I've done a lot of different things in the past few years. And yeah, correct. I did write a book about, it's more of a memoir, but it's really about being in the sex industry and the evolution of it to from just hopping in and going, I need to make money as a 20-something-year-old, and then
Wait, your voice is gone. I'm not sure if it's from my side as well or just you. I can't hear you. Try talking again.
a hop was coming in.
You're back. Yes. Oh, now you're gone again.
We good?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I'm here. I don't know which part it cut off at, but
It was a 20-something-year-old, and then it stopped there.
mm. Yeah, I got into the industry like a lot of young girls do. I want money and I want it fast. And then it turned into, okay, if I'm going to stay here, then I need to feel that I'm contributing to the elevation of humanity. And I want to feel in alignment with my truth. And I want to be offering value and be in service. So everything evolved from there, that desire to not just be working, I want to be existing in alignment with what I believe the world needs. So I showed up in that way. through tantric arts and just being of service. You know, so many men walked into the gentleman's club thinking they wanted one thing, and fortunately, I feel that after interfacing with me, many of them left realizing that they needed something else. And I think that's just a microcosm of the whole world, of the macrocosm, what we really need. Sometimes we don't realize that it's simply just presence, or to be heard, or to be seen.
Yeah, I totally hear you. I think not everybody takes that path like the way you did. So I was also intrigued, like, what was that turning point for you from seeing a deeper purpose behind what you were doing, and how did you like transition that for yourself?
Yeah, there were quite a few men who would come and see me and then return and implement some of the suggestions that I had given them, or simply something would shift in their life. And I realized that I really did have an impact and that I needed to move with intention and mindfulness. So that confirmation coming in over and over was pretty helpful. That was a shift. There was one very pivotal moment, but it was more towards the end of this whole chapter of my life. And that was when a man came in and saw me in Las Vegas, and he had ingested MDMA. He was like completely in his journey when he came into the club. And we had this version of a psychedelic psychotherapy session. You know, it was like full on deep communication, very personal. It was not sexual or even really sensual, but it was intimate. And I said, you know, simple things like, we got to put this Red Bull down. We're going to get you water. You're on MDMA. I take this very seriously. Like, let's take care of your body, because that's always first and foremost for me. And then we went into, all right, this is going on in your life, or this isn't aligned, this doesn't feel right. All right, like maybe you want to eat some mushrooms and go into the woods by yourself. Just a lot of interesting suggestions I gave him like that. And he found me years later, 6 years later, and said, you know, I actually did all the things that you told me to do.
Wow.
And life is drastically different. I'm a school teacher and I work with kids, and the way that I interact with them and what I'm teaching them is completely different. He said, you changed my life. But of course, I know that I was just like the conduit, the mirror. I don't feel like I was any sort of oracle. I don't want to take that responsibility, nor do I want to take that power away from him. He decided to change his own life. But there is so much responsibility, to be honest, when you are cultivating and holding that much sexual energy and you're sharing it with someone else, and you're cultivating it and you're playing with it. It's like, you know, you could be playing with fire or you could be playing with magic.
Yeah. And what were some of the things like that helped you, you know, in your journey to hold that power? Because I feel like it requires, at least for me, it required a lot of work, because what I do right now, as far as like getting into this type of work, I offer tantra massage, and it's still a lot of energy to hold, to just be that intimate with men. And it's a lot of energy to hold for sure, because you are playing with fire, but it's also very fulfilling in many ways. So just curious to know, as far as your journey, just energetically, since you're very energetically attuned, and some of your clearings, and like what are some of the processes that you did that helped you become more powerful in that space, where you're able to hold your boundaries, or even after that experience or interaction, you were able to clear your energy or transmute it? Or what's your take on that to start with as well?
Yeah, I believe that the foundation of all of this, I'm always coming back to this. Sometimes people can't fully connect it, but it's the self-care and the holistic living practices and continually purifying the body, because this is a channel, this is a vessel, and you have to keep it clear. So really the practice is taking care of my body first and foremost. And then I am able to bring in energy and let it flow through. And there's not blocks, there's nothing to protect from, because the body's doing what it's meant to do when it's taken care of, when we're in alignment, when we're whole, when we're healed, you know? And then also just really creating boundaries and understanding what those feel like and look like and what they really are. In the beginning, I don't feel like I had boundaries. when I started in the industry. And that developed over time, and I realized how important it was and necessary just to understand what my no is, what my yes is, how much energy I want to put out, what I want to receive. And the people that came into the field, the people that I would even speak to in the beginning were much different than the people that came in towards the end. Just the way that they would speak to me, the way that they would touch me, because, you know, when you're working in a gentleman's club, there's going to be touch that's like very real. Like, I'm not going to put any filters there. Like, there is a lot of physical touch and intimacy. So I truly believe that calibrating myself, I wasn't calling in the same things. It's interesting to articulate. It's really just like believing that you are powerful and that you're worthy and that you can call in whatever you want and you can avoid whatever you want. You can keep it out of your field. So it's also just having a truly, simply put, a sense of confidence.
Yeah, I love how you said that, because like just relating to you from what you just shared, sometimes the circulation of energy can be actually extremely powerful, but it's like me having my own blocks that makes me hold into other people's energy. And also learning the energetic boundaries of, okay, this doesn't feel good, this is not welcomed in my space. And I bet just your experience, there's more even people, so you have to even learn how to set those boundaries more assertively, energetically, and I feel like communication as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you were, because now I see that what I love as well as about your work is now you're also teaching women how to approach, not necessarily encouraging them to do this work, but I've seen some of your workshops and what you lead. And I would like to see your vision behind that, of what you're trying to empower women exactly to do.
Sorry, the dog is freaking out. Can you ask that question one more time?
Sorry. So I know now your work is like, I've seen like erotic nights and then some of that. So I've just seen glimpses of it, and I would like to just hear more about your vision and just what it's about.
Yeah, so basically I've partnered with a specific club in New York, and I have been teaching a lot there. And what I'm basing it on my tantric lap dance course. Sorry, 1 second.
Thank you, Natalie. Can't wait to see you. We can also do like a live together, like next to each other. That would be cool. Hi.
So sorry about that.
It's okay.
I guess it fits in the conversation very well. The dog really had to go pee. I'm like, really, this moment you really have to go pee? But honestly, that comes first. The body comes first, and that's part of what we're talking about.
I totally get it. Sometimes during my sessions, my cat needs me to open the door, and I'm like holding space for someone. She really needs to go.
Yeah, it's like, okay, that's important. Actually, like, let's pay attention to that.
It's like,
your fault. Okay, she's good now. She has her toy. So sorry about that.
No worries.
Yeah. The classes I've been teaching I'm calling them the Tantric Lap Dance, which is the same as my course, and basing it on that. But essentially, it's just learning how to cultivate and direct energy, and how to initiate and teach through that sexual energy. And also, I feel like we are essentially creating all these micro relationships in a gentleman's club, or even what you're doing, like the sensual massage or tantric massage, like that is a relationship. Like you are relating and you're connecting with someone, and you have to be mindful. You have to be mindful of your own energy, of theirs, you know, what you're giving to them, what you're receiving, and you're creating ripples in the world. You're teaching, you're guiding, and whatever you're putting out there, you know, it's going to continue to ripple out. You're affecting the world in a big way. So I think it's just moving with intentionality. And that's what we're really focused on in the classes and the workshops. But that's like the very subtle level. And it's kind of almost subconscious. Like we're going into the 3D and what we see. But if you look at it on a deeper level, it's really just let's move with intention.
Yeah, I love that. And also, one of the biggest reasons that motivated me to have this conversation with you is because the way you influenced my work was I felt this draw to get into, you know, tantra and sex work and all of that, you know, in different capacities and different expressions. And I think the way I used to see it, if I looked at myself like a couple years ago, was like, oh, this is like my rock bottom. I just wanted to make money fast and I just wanted to save myself out of something. But then it was actually so much more for me there. It wasn't just like the money or the, you know, the pacing of it. Yeah, that was rewarding, but I felt the power and the empowerment in it, both for me and the service to other men. Like before I was just a female empowerment coach, and not till I started working more intimately with men that I started showing up completely different as a coach, because it was such a missing piece in empowering women without completely fully understanding like what men go through and like seeing the other side fully and the humanness behind it. So a lot of people, like when I talk to them, and it's such a taboo topic, is like they see like I'm objectified, or they see like my body is being used, when in fact it's completely the other way around. If anything, I felt like I gained power over my body, because every time I step into this space, I felt very empowered. I knew where to set the boundaries. I had complete control, and it taught me how to be more like harness my intuition to who I allow and who I don't allow, how to have my voice. It was actually quite a reclamation of my body, as well as I really realized how much I was teaching like feminine empowerment in such a like missing piece there, without seeing like the true masculine and what the masculine needs and the true healing power of the feminine. And this is not to criticize the feminist movement too much, but there was a lot of things that I needed to break, that I broke free from just doing this work and seeing the power of it. I'm like, wow, like it's actually quite a beautiful dance and collaboration. I've never felt more honored as a female before I stepped into this work. And the way I really loved like just going into your story, it broke me free from a lot of these like societal beliefs that were put on me, and you really like you shared it in such a vulnerable and authentic way that made me realize that human interaction, this sacredness and this interaction, like anyone that would like normal people, or I wouldn't even like say normal people, just like the majority, at least in my world, they still perceive pole dancing as something so dirty, or strip clubs as seeing something so dirty. But then when you took it in such a way that is very sacred and conscious, I was like, wow, like imagine a world where, like even the ending of the book where you're like, imagine if the strip clubs were like a temple for bikinis. And I was like, wow, it's not just empowering for the women, it's very healing for the men. And it really kind of restores healthier relationships and dynamics between the masculine and feminine, versus just like what we see in day-to-day life in modern day society, where I think there's a lot of like disempowerment in it. It is empowered in like from the exterior at least, and this is so controversial, and I feel like it triggers a lot of people when I speak from that place, but after going through this work and the depth of it, I cannot unsee that experience of that. I felt more in tune with my nature. I felt more empowered than I have ever been before. So I really wanted you to speak more on that, of how that personal journey for you, if like a woman that is still in her, you know, early exploration of her sexuality and still fearing the objectification and all, like just getting that male attention or that hatred towards men and the abuse, and how you handle that in your own personal experience, or just speak freely from it from any angle.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I I never felt objectified working in gentlemen's clubs. I didn't feel objectified even webcamming and having men throw out all of these comments, you know, just like very blatantly, like hiding behind the screen, like, okay, show us your pussy, whatever, like, you know, like no tact, no skill, no filters, just like, you know, they're just like blurting out exactly what's going through their head. Um, but I believe that part of the reason why I didn't feel that is my own perspective. Well, it's completely my own perspective because anybody can feel objectified in any moment, male or female. And I don't think that we necessarily are being objectified working in the sex industry. It's just a lot of uh, unconscious, primal desires flowing through. And some of them are conscious, like people consciously come in and know what they want and are saying it with, you know, they're fully awake and aware, asking for whatever they're asking for, right? Um, but these are like primal desires. These are innate desires, sex and, you know, intimacy and all of these very raw, fleshy things. And I don't think that it's necessarily unhealthy. There's so much shame and stigma wrapped up in sex and sexuality. And that's really where the objectification piece comes in. You know, it's all tied together, like all of the darkness of it. Like it's just, it's negative. It's negative to want sex. It's negative to talk about it. But it's not if it's marketing to women or marketing to men. You know, it's just like all convoluted and distorted. And I believe that our responsibility in what we're doing is to take the distortion out of the conversation, out of the field, and take the shame out of it and take the stigma out of it. We got here, we are here, we're having this conversation because two people had sex and it wouldn't exist otherwise. There's nothing wrong with it, there's nothing shameful about it. It's a beautiful thing. The only time that it becomes wrong and shameful is when we put that stamp on it, we put that label on it. A man walking into a gentleman's club and looking at a female on a stage performing and moving in an erotic, sensual way can be appreciation. He can be adoring her. He can be in awe of her. He doesn't have to be objectifying her because he's watching her moving in a sensual way. So it's, for me, it was so much about like flipping the script, you know? What I'm doing is a service. It's sacred. It's necessary. We've had geishas and courtesans and dakinis and all of this since the beginning of time. There have always been these, you know, expressed, embodied women fully, fully in their sexuality and revered. And I don't know at what point things became distorted because so much of history is bullshit. We don't really know what's true before the moment that we were alive. But I do know that sex is sacred and that sexual energy is sacred and that sex is light. It's light work. There's nothing wrong or shameful there. And there's nothing wrong or shameful in desires or even all the taboo things, all the kinky things. They're coming from somewhere. I really don't see any need to shame anyone for any of their desires. And I want to be seen. So I'm definitely not feeling objectified. Yes, see me in my eroticism, see me in my sensuality, appreciate it, adore it. Go ahead, catcall, clap, whatever, gawk. That's what I would do as well if I was you know, in front of some magnificent, statuesque being, some beautiful woman, you know? There's nothing wrong with it. So I I believe that the objectification piece comes from fear as well, you know, like, oh, I'm not safe because someone's looking at me, or what are they going to do? And that's why we need more light there. We need more conversation there. There's like, let's keep bringing it into the light and talk about it. It's not going anywhere. When we like push it away and put it in the dark and say it's wrong or shameful, all these things bubble up. Like, you know, I'm worried when a man's looking at me as a woman, or like I'm fearing that he's objectifying me, and it can go both ways too, you know.
Yeah.
That conversation's not had too often, you know, like a man feeling objectified, or, you know, like I think some of them even feel that in a strip club, you know, like these women, like they feel like vultures, they're coming to attack me. But that is the environment, you know, they're working and they can be really aggressive. It's a very flipped narrative where the woman is like stepping into her masculine very often.
Yes.
I teach women that's totally not the way to do it. That's not the way to make money as a dancer or a woman in the sex industry. Like, you soften into your feminine, that's where things really happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that you mentioned the point about like fear. I think it really stems from either fear or shame. Because honestly, like when I'm in a safe space, when I'm in a relationship, I love being objectified. Like that in itself could be like a turn on. Like especially when I'm ovulating, I'm always telling my partner, "You're allowed to objectify me as much as you want." So like even that itself, like I've flipped the script. But it's a lot of programming for sure. Because just going through my journey, there was a lot of like, I remember even like going and auditioning to a strip club, and it was just for me to just own it. Like this thing that I feared that was going to be the rock bottom of my rock bottom, the thing that my parents told me, this is how I'm going to end up because I'm a failure. And I'm like, wow, I actually really enjoyed it. Like I enjoyed that tension. Like every part of my body was like, hell yeah, they're just like, you know, looking at me and worshiping me and like throwing money. I'm like, okay, this is not as bad as everybody's saying. I'm sure it has its ups and downs. I never really went into like the full industry to really know. But as far as just even OnlyFans as well, you know, similar to the camming, I felt really empowered. I'm like, I'm just taking sexy pictures of myself and I'm making more money than my regular job. I don't know what part of it is wrong. When I completely feel like I am rewriting the script, I am owning my body, and I'm having full control of what I want to show and what I don't want to show. And I think what's healing even for men, is they also hold a lot of shame about their primal needs. Like with all these movements and all these like shaming them, and just really like sometimes the intake conversation with a man that wants to have a tantra massage with me and telling me about his desires is healing. He's like, oh, I'm allowed to be unfiltered with you. I feel very safe to just be myself. I'm like, yeah, I mean, you're allowed to have all your desires. I'm not necessarily going to be the one fulfilling them, but you're completely, you know, a human being, and just that in its own, of like him expressing that, can like transmute so much for him. That could be the gift on its own. And so I see you when you were talking about just them coming and them just exploring and having that secret, like you become their therapist in these spaces where they get to be themselves more probably than anywhere else in the world, in the world, you know, whether they're showing up for their family or at work, they're always guarded. And I felt like that was the true gift of how much these men just needed feminine energy to soften and be themselves. It's literally like a sanctuary where they feel that they don't have to put all of that like they do in their day-to-day life. And I think that was the point for me when I realized that this work had so much depth. Like you say, sex work is light work, had so much depth than how I perceived it when I was outside. And I couldn't have known that without, you know, seeing other women do that work and then kind of feeling intrigued and dipping my toes a little bit and experimenting on my own. I remember the moment where I really like finally took that step was just being around other like women that were in the industry, and then I was like, and I admired them so much, and they were so empowered. And then that was a clicking point for me, where everything I thought of how I used to perceive was like, oh, I thought they were used and they didn't have any other option, and they're just so desperate for money. But they seem like they're goddesses and they're so divine. And it wasn't even them telling a story, it was the transmission of how I felt in their presence that really spoke to me. And it was kind of like how I experienced in that masterclass. It was really just that transmission that I received on a body level that was undeniable for me, to go like, there's something there. I kind of want to explore more of that. So yeah, thank you for being so open and sharing your story, like online, and also heard some of your podcasts and just hearing. So I want you to talk a little bit about your vision as far as like the conscious strip club, and if you put that into action, because sometimes I talk with my friends about it. I'm like, we'll definitely be part of something like that, because we're all like pole dancers, and now pole dance has become more of like a hobby and more normalized online. So I'm liking the normalization of it, and I would love to hear more of your take on it and your vision.
Yeah, there will continue to be strip clubs. There will continue to be sex workers, escorts, you know. This isn't going anywhere. We know that. So let's create some intentionality around it, right? And create a space for healing, create a space for, like I was saying, those ripples to go out into the world in a way that we all want them to, as opposed to what we currently have now, which is men walking out of a strip club with an empty wallet, feeling broke, emasculated, maybe hungover or belligerent or just like sick or blacked out, how they don't remember anything. Like, this is not what I want to perpetuate anymore. I don't want to condone it. So I was in there operating as if I was in my own little bubble, having my conscious strip club within the big, dark, shadowy strip club. But I believe there's really space for something completely different, you know, a temple where people come in the daytime and they take off their shoes on the way in, and there's things that make them feel good instead of rob them of their health, you know, like elixirs and like potions and herbs and things that can actually make the fun. You can make you, maybe you'll be high, maybe you'll feel like intoxicated, but you're not going to feel like, you know, you're out of commission for 3 days after that wild night in Vegas at the strip club. Elevating music, you know, like completely the opposite end of the spectrum from everything that's currently happening. And men and women honoring each other. And yes, like as you were saying earlier, the men coming in and watching a performance and completely worshiping that woman, but her worshiping him in return and drawing out that masculine energy, his king, and seeing his king and seeing him as, you know, a divine being, and that being a mutual encounter. So both are being revered, you know, and just more respect for everyone and seeing the light in everyone, as opposed to like, you know, the women coming in as these very aggressive, manipulative, maybe even intoxicated themselves, in this mode where they're taking, you know, like, I see you as a dollar sign, I'm here to make money. Okay, we can do that too. We can all be supported in this. We can be making money, but what are we giving? Like, are you actually giving what you're receiving? Is it a clean, energetic exchange? And that's what I would like in a conscious strip club. That's what I see. And I'm a big advocate for psychedelics and plant medicines, and I would love for that to also be a piece of it when it's legal, when it's possible, for that to be, you know, in the light as well. There's in some places, so we could have a conscious strip club with psilocybin in some places. In Oakland, California, for example, it would be legal, you know. So I believe that there's a lot of potential for healing and for a shift in that space.
Yeah, I really love your vision, and it's a complete opposite of the Hollywood movie, The Hustlers. I don't know if you watched it.
Completely the opposite. So anything that's going on in that film, consider the opposite end of the spectrum. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah, no, exactly. And the thing is like there is like when you watch the movie, you can't help but feel like how badass these women are for taking advantage of these men, and it's really a Hollywood narrative that's like in all movies, one way or another. It's like manipulation. And even as I started working with men, a lot of them were traumatized because how many times they've been scammed, and I just really hate it. And I think I love the part where you said they're worshiping the woman and then you're worshiping back. And I think there's, for me, that worshiping and seeing the divine and the king in a man and bringing the best out of him is extremely fulfilling. It never disempowered me. It made me more powerful woman when I'm able to see that in him. Just him walking, feeling more of a man, more, stronger, more complete, more whole, more validated in his in his masculinity is extremely fulfilling. And when I teach the women, I'm like, don't miss out on the best part. Like, don't miss out on the best part. Even when I see a man like just being open and vulnerable and crying and not having a space outside of that space where he can be a human, I'm like, ladies, you're missing on the best part. Like, to see a strong man just be like this, this soft person in your hands is truly an honor. And I'm like, I don't understand how you're like hating on it when it's so beautiful. And it just takes a lot of inner work, I believe, for them to reach that, and acceptance of not putting certain roles or expectations and releasing a lot of shame. But I really feel like what you just described is such a beautiful collaboration and fulfilling for both. Because yeah, you still deserve to be compensated for it, but it's a clean energy, like how the word you use is really clean energy. Another thing that I really loved is that you said it's gonna exist anyways, so might as well do it in a healthier manner. And it kind of that leads me into the psychedelics part. Like, they're gonna exist anyways, and people are doing them in a very wrong way, and some people never really integrate their psychedelics experiences, and they do it in like not in a place where it can enhance it and elevate it. So I would like you to just touch on that and tell me if you incorporate any psychedelics in your work and plant medicine in your healing journeys or the spaces that you lead. Um,
Yeah, for sure. Uh, so many people know this, but I'll just mention it. Specifically MDMA, which I don't know if I completely put in the category of plant medicines or psychedelics, but it is a mind-altering substance. It was created for marriage counseling. And so couples would feel like they got some like 10 years of therapy in one session when they utilize MDMA. And like I was saying earlier, the man who came back and saw me, he had been using MDMA that night that we met. So in that journey on that medicine, as I'd like to call it when it's used in an intentional way, there is this opportunity to kind of loosen up the knots and the threads in the mind of like certain habits and patterns and internal dialogue. So when we have a clear channel in front of us, a mirror, or somebody who can just hold space for us, there is so much healing that can occur. And even if it's like some really one little subtle thing that shifts, that can change your whole life. So utilizing something like MDMA or all plant medicines and psychedelics, just in my opinion, just like really up-levels the experience. There's so much more that can happen in a short period of time. So that's why I'm such a huge advocate for that. And yeah, definitely in a lot of the work that I do, I'm using medicines for sure.
Yeah, I'm also a huge advocate because I've tried working with people that they just need intervention. I mean, I'm just being honest. Like, there's just been either a lot of trauma or just a lot of resistance, especially if they're so stuck in their head. And I tell them at this point, you either need deep body work or you need psychedelics, because you need something powerful that will intervene in your process to really have that breakthrough. And so I love like also the normalization that started to happen with plant medicine shrooms and becoming a little bit more acceptable. MDMA, I feel like still people are hesitant about it, but as far as like some of your spaces that you hold, like do you do it for couples? Do you do it just for like people coming into your place? Or can you tell me a little bit more of how that space looks like? So it paints an image for people who are intrigued but want to do it in a safe way, because there's still a lot of fear around drugs, and I wouldn't recommend someone taking it from the street because there's also a lot of risk. Or also, even if it was pure, you also want to do it where a place where you're, especially if you have a lot of trauma, someone that can hold space and help you integrate after, because it can have you like also a setback for your experience, which I've also witnessed. So yeah, talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. I appreciate you bringing some of that dialogue in, and specifically integration, because you can have this big, beautiful, profound experience with or without psychedelics and plant medicines, just in life in general. And you walk away from that experience and you do nothing with it, and you don't incorporate it into your life. You never think about it again. It's just, what was that experience? What was the point of it? I believe that we can benefit us so much to reflect on these experiences, and also just to unravel them really slowly, and to take time. So I think there was, even for me at one point in my life when I first started sitting with ayahuasca, there was this deep desire to keep going back and going back and going back, because there were answers there. So I just kept digging and digging and digging for answers. Then I realized after, 20, 30 something times, okay, I'm not actually getting it anywhere. I'm just kind of spinning my wheels. I'm like getting all this information, but I haven't done anything with it. And the real medicine came when I started doing something with all of the answers and all of the insights and all of the realizations that came from just one time. And even like 1 hour of one time, 1 minute, one moment. So it's the same with everything, even just like these grand experiences we have in life. So what did you learn from that? Or what new feeling did you get from that? How can you tap into that without having to replay the experience again, or having to have some peak experience? We don't have to keep going there. We bring that into our everyday life, because we can't just live in a peak experience. We wouldn't have a peak experience. It would just be that, right? So yeah, I'm definitely an advocate for all of them. And instead of going too much into what I do specifically, because it's very much individual, depends on, the couple or the person, I highly recommend that if anyone has any curiosity, like go and look into psychedelic psychotherapy and the programs that are being offered now. Specifically, the school that I went to, CIIS, California Institute of Integral Studies, was the first university that offered the psychedelic psychotherapy certificate program for therapists. And those people are working now with MAPS, a multidisciplinary association for psychedelic studies, working on getting these medicines available for people who really need it, who are experiencing PTSD, for therapeutic use. So if it interests you, definitely go into the rabbit hole and explore on your own, and see what you find, because this is an individual path,
Yeah, I love that. I didn't even know that existed. That's awesome. Yeah, and it helped a lot of people with like extreme PTSD as well. And I love how you said it was actually for couples therapy. So that's amazing. Yeah. Well, thank you, Lana, so much for your time. As we closing to wrapping it up, is there anything that you're currently offering or something that you're currently doing that you would like to share?
Yeah, my focus right now, I actually started collaborating with my younger sister, who's becoming a health coach. It's my blood sister that I grew up with. And she's going to IIN, the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, to become a health coach. So what I'm really focused on right now is just the foundation of all of this. And that really is taking care of the body and purifying the body and getting yourself in a really good place. And then you can do things like work in a gentleman's club or get a tantric massage, like all of these things. Like this is the necessary foundation, because if you're not strong in your body and in your mind, nothing really works out. doesn't matter what you're doing. So I'm going back to basics right now and really building that foundation. So what we're offering is just a community, and what we have right now, we have it running, is a community for women to be supported and held accountable in whatever practices they're diving into to really care for the body and the mind and cultivate health and well-being, and then be available for whatever else they want to do in their life.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for your time. And if anyone is interested, that is beautiful. Yeah, and have a great rest of your day. Is there anything else you want to add before we close?
You can stay up to date with all the things I'm doing through my social through here. There's a lot coming up, just like podcasts and new courses and videos and classes and workshops, all the things, and they'll all be accessible through I'll be announcing them all on my social, and then my email newsletter is where I get into more personal things. So if you want that, you can jump in.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, love.
Bye-bye.